Hey, thanks for stopping by. If you're new here, I'm Marissa. Today, my day is all about meat stock. I'm going to be making something for dinner, and while I take you along and do that, I'm going to be talking about why I prefer meat stock over bone broth. I'm also going to show you my different ways that I like to use it creatively in different meals, how I fit it into my busy week, because I am busy. I'm a mom of 5 young kids, and the ways that I make that work. I'm going to talk about my favorite ways to store it. So let's go get started. So I am just going to be putting together a simple example of one of the myriad of endless ways that you can make meat stock. And while I do that, I'm going to talk about why I prefer meat stock over bone broth when it comes to gut wellness in particular. So, what I'm making today is kind of it's a nice fall version of a basic chicken meat stock / chicken soup recipe. And I am starting with a chicken from frozen. I don't always do this, but sometimes I do. I had meat taken out. I just forgot about this particular recipe, so I didn't take out this one, but it's okay. I start them from frozen all the time and it works just fine. So with any meat stock recipe, no matter what type of meat you're starting with and whatever else you're going to add, you always start with raw meaty bones. It can be so many different options for this, but today I'm doing a whole chicken. I am also adding chicken feet and chicken heads. This is a really awesome thing that I love to do whenever I can, because the chicken feet and the chicken heads add lots of really important nutrients into meat stock. The chicken feet are wonderful sources of collagen, the chicken heads as well with the combs, and they just add a lot of really great beneficial properties to meat stock. So whenever you can, I highly recommend adding feet and heads to your chicken meat stock. So we got the whole chicken, the feet, the heads, and I'm going to get my spring water next. When you're making meat stock, the water that you're using does matter. You want to either use filtered water or spring water. And then as I work on the rest of this, I'm going to just turn this on high so that it can start coming up to a boil. Next, I'm going to be adding some mineral salt. One of the keys to tasty meat stock is plenty of mineral salt. Don't be shy. Also, don't go overboard right at the cooking stage, because you can always add more later. Taste it and add more later, or as you're eating it or drinking it. But my main point is don't be shy, because one of the secrets to delicious meat stock is enough high quality mineral salt. And if you're the kind of person who wants written out recipes and step-by-step written instructions, printable recipe cards, and things like that, I have lots of different meat stock recipes over on my website, bumblebeeapothecary.com, and I'll link a bunch of them down in the description so you can check that out. But I wanted to just do this, walking through the different steps. So we've got that in there. Next thing that I always add in meat stock are onions. So I'm actually just going to chop these and get them ready, and I will add them later, because what's going to happen is this is going to come up to a boil, and then we're going to skim any scum that rises to the top. So when you see scum rise to the top when meat stock comes to a boil, that's the bones cleaning themselves. So it's good to skim that off if you can. If you miss that step, it's not the end of the world. The fact that you're making and having meat stock is far more important than whether or not you remembered to skim it. I just always like to remind people of that, to keep the priorities straight, because especially when you're new to this, it can be so easy to get overwhelmed and sidetracked with all the different little details and things to know and all that kind of thing. So, If you skip something like skimming the scum, don't worry, it's okay. The fact that you're having meat stock is far more important. While we're doing this, and these are strong onions, they're hard to peel. I think they're very fresh. I can feel them in my eyes. This one's not a very good one. I'm going to have to swap that one out for a better one. But actually, while we're talking about onions, another secret to really delicious meat stock is enough onions. So I'm doing 3 because these are small, but I always do at least 2 onions, like 2 regular big full-size onions. I find that there's a big difference in the flavor of the finished meat stock between 1 onion and 2. So I always do at least 2. I'll do 3 or more if they're really small. But why do I like meat stock better than bone broth for gut wellness? Well, my teacher, Dr. Natasha, who created the GAPS nutritional protocol, talks about how bone broth is very high in glutamic acid, and that can be very irritating for people who have leaky guts. And there's other reasons too, but that's a big one. Basically, it can be very irritating for people with leaky guts. The other reason that I like meat stock better than bone broth for gut wellness, especially in the beginning, is that the nutrients are more easily available for the body. The collagen and amino acids and everything is in a form that's a lot easier for the body to be able to take and use. Because one of the things that we're accomplishing when we're first starting to work on supporting our gut wellness is sealing leaky gut. And so we want those nutrients like the collagen very available and easy to use, and meat stock provides that. So the differences between meat stock and bone broth are meat stock is from raw meaty bones. So this is going to be anything. Ooh, I got to move these onions. They are getting to my eyes. Okay, we are okay. All right. So meat stock is made from raw meaty bones. So this is any type of raw meat with a bone, preferably a joint in it, because you want lots of connective tissue. Bone broth is made from bony bones without really much meat on them. They can be previously cooked bones from another meal that you put into water and cook. Meat stock is always raw, and it's meaty bones with meat, preferably a joint. The other thing that makes the two different is cook time. So meat stock is cooked for a short amount of time. Poultry will be 1.5 to 3 hours. Things like beef, pork, game, lamb, things like that are going to be 4 to 6 hours and no longer. And fish is usually 1.5 hours, or seafood like that. So those are the differences, and the short cook time keeps it lower in histamines and all those nutrients very easily available and easy for the body to assimilate and use. So that is why I prefer meat stock on a gut wellness protocol and not bone broth. So when you're thinking about gut wellness, bone broth is really optional. You can add it much later once you know that you're not dealing with leaky gut anymore. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. I personally pretty much don't ever make bone broth. Meat stock is easier. It's done a lot quicker. You can incorporate it into meals a lot easier. So since it's easier and the benefits are actually more helpful for us, then I just stick with meat stock. So we've got our whole chicken, our feet, our heads, our mineral salt. I'm also going to add a sprinkle of black pepper, ground black pepper. That's something that you could wait and do after skimming the scum too, but it's okay. So the other things that I'm adding to this particular batch of meat stock, which is also going to be a meal, chicken soup, are some celery, and then, like I said, this is going to be one that has a fun fall theme to it. So I'm going to be peeling and cutting up this pumpkin, and I'm going to add that to it to cook as well. And then we're going to finish with some fresh herbs at the very end to just give it a really nice flavor. So this is just one of, like I said, endless possibilities of making meat stock. It's one of my favorite things about it is if you're new to this type of approaching meals and cooking, it can seem like, okay, I just want a written recipe. Just tell me what to put in there, which is totally fine. But if you're the type of person who likes creativity, or even just as you get used to it and you want more variety, it's so fun to start branching out. And what I like to do is use a template. If you've been with me in my videos, I talk about this a lot. But you start with a template where you start with what type of meat are you using, what type of flavor profile would you like to use. You could choose an ethnic one like Asian flavors, Italian flavors. There's so many different options. And then within that you choose, okay, what herbs and spices am I going to use to get those flavors, and what vegetables do I want to use for those flavors, as well as what's in season, what sounds good to me, what do I have on hand to use up. So like there's endless combinations once you get going. So we are bringing this to a boil. You can see that it's just kind of starting. There's starting to be some scum. So we're just going to keep an eye on that. It'll really start to accumulate in a little bit here. But I'm going to also get going on this pumpkin. So doing a pumpkin like this, to be honest, is not my typical way of doing things. This is a little bit more labor intensive than I will usually choose to do. I usually choose to keep things very, very quick and easy around here. But this is a really fun recipe. It's one that my mom used to make when I was growing up, and I really like the flavors, and I just remembered it the other day, so I was like, you know what? Let's make this. Yes, it's a little more work to peel the pumpkin and all that. So usually when I cook a pumpkin, I'll just keep it whole. I'll poke some holes in it, and I'll just bake the whole pumpkin by setting it on the oven rack, 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about an hour, and then the skin peels off and you can scrape the seeds out, and I'll use cooked pumpkin that way in recipes for like muffins or whatever. But since we're in a soup, we actually do need to scrape the seeds out and peel it. But since this is a fun fall recipe, it'll be okay. As I'm doing this, I'll just keep an eye. We are starting to get some really good scum rising to the top. We are in pretty good shape to start skimming. So yeah, it would have been better to wait to add the pepper. I just, sometimes get ahead of myself, but it's okay. I usually will just grab a little container like this little glass pitcher, and I'll just go around and I'll just skim all the scum. But this is nice. This is why it's nice to wait to add like the onions and the celery and all that kind of stuff, because it tends to get kind of in the scum, and then it's hard to not throw that away as you're skimming. I'm also going to turn my heat down because we don't need we just bring it up to a boil and then right away turn it down, because the rest of the cook time is going to be a simmer. Now for chicken cook times, can kind of vary a little bit depending on the chicken. So for a homegrown, pasture-raised, big, robust chicken like this one, this is not a big one as far as size goes, but it is one that we raised out on our land out back. And so these type of chickens tend to be a lot more robust and sturdy. And so a little bit longer cook time is usually good for them. So I'll go for 3 hours for the chickens that we raise ourselves. For regular grocery store chickens, they tend to have a bit wimpier connective tissue. They tend to be smaller, all that kind of stuff. I will do those for more like 1.5 to 2 hours. All right, so I'm just going to keep working away at my pumpkin here. And once I have all the seeds scraped out and all the skin peeled off, I will dice it up. Actually, now that we have the scum skimmed, we are good to go ahead and add our onion, our celery. Plus, I also remembered I did want to add a few garlic cloves too. So the easiest way, because I don't like tedious stuff, is to just use this garlic press where you don't have to peel them. With this particular one, you just put them in there, press it, and then like that, add it. If you want really powerful garlic flavor, or maybe you're after really powerful garlic benefits for whatever reason, you can wait and just add the garlic at the end. All right, so we have the onion, garlic, and celery in there. And I will get to work on these pumpkins. So what I'm going to do is have for this particular recipe anyway, this kind of just depends on what all you're adding. Because as many of you know, I'm sure, you can do a meat stock meal, soup, stew type of thing, and add everything right at the beginning, and then just let it go, and then dinner time rolls around and it's ready to serve as is. But for this particular one, I'm going to let what I have in there now, the chicken feet heads, onions, garlic, celery, salt and pepper, I'm going to let that go for the first, good, probably the full cook time I think I'm going to do. So 3 hours. And then after that, I'm going to go in, take everything, all the meat pieces out, put that on a plate, let it cool, and then I will add the pumpkin, let that simmer in there until the pumpkin is nice and soft, because I don't want the pumpkin too soft. I don't want it disintegrating. I want it to be recognizable cubes in the finished soup is what I'm going for. So I don't want it in there that whole entire time. But this way it's ready to go. So then I'll add that back to just the meat stock. I will let that simmer, and then while that's simmering, I'll take the meat off of the bones, get that ready to add in, and then just at the very end, we will add our herbs. So this is simmering nicely. We're just gonna keep this on hand, and I'll show you when it's time to go to the next steps. And while this is simmering, I did want to talk a little bit about how I fit meat stock into my routine. As a very busy mom of 5 young kids, we prioritize gut wellness around here, so our meals are very focused on foods that support that on an ongoing basis. We've all had our specific gut wellness journeys and certain amounts of time that we've all spent on a gut wellness protocol using nutrient-dense food. At this point in time, we have accomplished what we needed to with that, and so we're eating a wide variety of traditional foods that healthy cultures ate around the world, and in the modern world way that looks like. And we always continue to keep those very key foods for supporting gut wellness just long term in the way that we eat. So what are some ways that I keep these things going, specifically meat stock? So for meat stock, I have talked in other videos about this, so if you've been watching my other videos, you'll recognize this, but I like to work with a weekly mealtime template, sort of like a rhythm type of a thing, where I have themes for different days. And the way I do this is I decide, okay, Tuesday is going to be Taco Tuesday, so we're going to do something with a Mexican theme every week. Oftentimes it'll be homemade tortillas, sourdough tortillas with all kinds of different toppings, grass-fed ground beef, and all kinds of toppings. Or sometimes we'll change it up and we'll do enchiladas, or it could even be like a soup or a stew with a Mexican flavor profile. But that you get the idea. So we have a theme for each day. And then Thursday is like Italian night. So then once we have our framework of what type of a theme is going to happen on each day, Then we just fit in, okay, what are we in the mood for? What ingredients do I have on hand to use up? A lot of times this does look like having similar things repeatedly, just because we really like them. They're easy. So there is nothing wrong with that. I just want to put that out there. There is no point, if you ask me, in variety for variety's sake. I'm getting a lot of steam from this, and I don't want it to mess up my hair. Go that way. Yeah, so we don't need to worry about variety just for variety's sake. What I like to do is listen to your body. What are you enjoying right now? Do you want something? Are you getting actually tired of these foods, and do you want to change it up because you're getting tired of them? If not, don't worry about it. Keep eating the things that are working and that you like and that feel good and feel right. So for example, lately it has been the sourdough tortillas and grass-fed ground beef with onion, garlic, chili powder, mineral salt, and then avocado, tomatoes, raw shredded cheddar cheese, sour cream, lettuce, fermented jalapenos, salsa, all that kind of stuff. Every Tuesday we've been having that. We look forward to it. We love it. And then sometimes, you know, we'll change it up. But so that's what I like to do. So where does meat stock fit in with all this? So meat stock fits in my themes. Normally I will do a soup or a stew on Wednesdays. So that will be, oftentimes lately it's been a chicken soup. And then Mondays I will do more of a casserole type of a dish where there is meat stock made in, it's not so much of a soup or stew, so there's less liquid, but there is meat stock being made in a big piece of meat, usually a roast with a bone in it. So we will have meat stock on Mondays, Wednesdays, and oftentimes from those two meals I will have meat stock left over that I will fit in other meals on other days of the week too. So I like to incorporate meat stock in other ways, like having it in rice. So use that as the liquid for cooking rice. Or oftentimes we will heat up meat stock and have it in just a mug alongside something else that we're eating. Or we will build another soup from some meat stock that we had. Or we will be having lunch on another day that we don't have meat stock being made for dinner that day, but we'll have it in the form of a soup or stew for lunch that day. So those are ways that I work it in and just keep it in our meals on a very regular basis. Just a little side note here, I am actually saving these pumpkin seeds too, because they can be really great, lots of different ways. They can be a fun snack. You can make things with them. Dr. Natasha, the creator of the GAPS nutritional protocol, talks about how you can make a pumpkin seed blended drink that's actually good for, it's a really gentle, natural way of addressing internal parasites. If you feel like there's an overgrowth of internal parasites that you want to address. This is not something to do if you're just new to supporting gut wellness. This is something that you save for way down the road before you get all the other first things done first. But I just thought of that because I thought, hey, pumpkin seeds, I'm gonna do that. But basically what you do is you will soak your pumpkin seeds. So you're going to want to have just the green insides for this. So I'll have to separate those out, but then you'll soak the green insides. It can be in some whey, it can be in water if that's what you have. And then you let them soak overnight, and then in the morning you drain them, add some lemon juice, and blend them up, and it makes it's actually really tasty. A little just blended, I don't know what you would call it. We eat it with a spoon when we do it, but it's tasty. So you blend it up and then you enjoy that, and then it's supposed to be good to do around the full moon if you're on more of like a maintenance phase of your wellness journey, and you're okay, you've been cleared that it's okay to think about parasites, because we don't do that in the beginning. So just thought of that as I saw these, so I'm gonna definitely save those and make something with them. Another one of our favorite ways to work meat stock into meals that everybody really enjoys is using it as the cooking liquid when we are making rice. So I like to use just a nice organic high quality white rice. This is basmati, and the reason for that is brown rice has a lot of phytic acid that you have to work to neutralize, and so when the outer hull has been removed, you get rid of that. So I just find that this is a lot easier and quicker. We're not relying on those nutrients in the whole because we're having lots of other animal foods to provide all of nice vitamins and things like that, minerals. So what I do like to do is soak the rice first, and then I will drain it. And my favorite way of cooking rice lately has been in the Instant Pot because it's super easy. So I've got 3 cups of my soaked rice in there. I use twice as much liquid as rice, so I'm going to need 6 cups of liquid, and I'll show you what I like to do. So I like to store meat stock in these super cubes. It's the name brand. I think I have an off brand, but these are in 1 cup portions, and so I'm going to use about half of, you can use any, you know what, I'm actually going to use, let me think, I think I'm going to use 4 of these. So each of these is 1 cup, and then I'll just add 2 cups of water. So I'll show you what my process for storing it looks like with these a little bit later. I'll add 4 of those, and then 2 cups of my spring water. Hopefully this will be enough to get, yeah. And then the other things I add are some salt. Usually for this amount, like 1.5 teaspoons of salt is good. That meat stock will have some salt in it too, so I just keep that in mind and I'm careful to not go overboard. And then the other thing that I add is plenty of butter. I will usually go ahead and add an entire cup of butter for this amount of rice. So I put that in there. And then, nice thing about the Instant Pot is we just choose the rice setting and then we're good to go. So definitely one of our favorite ways of including meat stock in meals. All right, our cook time is done. So at this point, we get to take all of the meat pieces out. So the pieces that I'm going to use for meat that's going to go back into the soup, I'm going to put on this plate, and then the heads and feet we are finished with. So those will just go elsewhere. All right, that's all of the chicken. So next, we'll just get a container from the sink here and add these to it, since they've served their purpose and put all of their nice nutrients into the stock, and they are no longer needed. There we go. I think we got them all. Now what I'm going to do is add our cubed pumpkin. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my heat just back up to a nice simmer. What I want is for this to be able to cook nicely so that the pumpkin is soft. Should take somewhere around 20 to 30 minutes once it's simmering. And towards the end of that time, this will be cool enough to handle. I'll add the meat back to it, and then for fresh herbs, we have some cilantro, which is really delicious in combination with the cubed pumpkin. So I'm just chopping that up a little bit, but I will add that right at the very end because I don't want this to be cooked really all that much. I want it to stay pretty fresh and green. And while that is finished cooking, I wanted to share my tips for how I like to store meat stock. So I do sometimes store it in jars in the freezer, but it's not my favorite. So if you're using jars with a shoulder, which is this curved part, when it curves and is a little narrower at the top, they are very prone to breaking in the freezer. I've lost a lot of jars that way. There are some tricks that I've kind of come up with that make it so it's more successful, but it's not completely bulletproof. So what I'll do is first make sure that you're putting cool meat stock, so like down to room temperature into your glass jar, not hot, and then freeze it with no lid on. Actually, I missed a step. So use room temperature meat stock in your jar. Do not fill it past the shoulder, and then freeze it with no lid on, and then once it's frozen, add a lid. That is the best method if you do want to try freezing meat stock in a mason jar. Another trick I've heard of, which I haven't tried because I don't have them with the right types of lids, but apparently you can freeze more successfully in glass if there's no shoulder. So if it's a straight up and down Weck jar with the right type of lid, you can try that. But the other method that I generally go to when I freeze it, I'll just store it in the refrigerator and plan to use it within about a week to 10 days. But if I am freezing it, I tend to go towards these. So I wait till it's cool, room temperature, not hot, and then the name brand of these is Super Cubes, but I think this is an off brand, but I do really like them. So they have little measurements inside that show 4 ounces or 8 ounces, so you can fill it for half a cup or a full cup, and then you're able to very easily pop your meat stock out and just add it to recipes. So like if you want to make a separate type of a soup where you're adding things, or use it for the base of a sauce or a gravy, or you want to add it when you're cooking rice, or you just want to heat some up and sip it in a mug, whatever you want to do, you have little portions ready to pop out and do that with. So that is my favorite way to store it. One of my favorite ways to enjoy meat stock that can sometimes get forgotten when we're just focused on recipes and meals and things like that is sipping it alongside a meal. So maybe you're having a different type of meal that's not a soup or a stew or something, but you can enjoy cups of meat stock alongside. That can be really nice because it's a little different. If you get tired of soup or stew over and over again, then you can have the meat and vegetables on a plate, and then you can have meat stock on the side. So I really like this. I like to kind of sip it. You can eat it with a spoon or sip it straight from the mug, but it's really delicious. A very nice way to support digestion is sipping warm meat stock at the beginning of a meal. So that is another great way to enjoy it. And I also just want to encourage you, wherever you're at with your wellness journey, if you're trying to support gut wellness with nutrient-dense food and you're thinking about meat stock and including it more often on a regular basis and all of that, is to start where you can. Don't stress about it, because people who are stressed are not going to be getting better. So start where you can, start adding it, even if it's not every single day at first, just start adding it in. Sometimes it's better to do less, because when you start having too much, the body wants to go into very deep cleansing and cleanup mode very, very quickly, and that can start to feel really uncomfortable. So a gentle, slow approach is pretty much always better. So you don't have to beat yourself up if it feels like very slow progress or you're not being as consistent as you would like. That's okay. Just focus on starting where you're at, getting in some meat stock, even if it isn't every single day. Pretty soon it'll be easy to do it every day, but just start with where you can. Include it when you're making rice instead of water. Have a soup once a week, and pretty soon expand it to twice a week. Heat some up and sip some beside your meal at dinner time. All those different kinds of things. Just slowly, gradually start working it in, and it'll be doable before you know it, because it's all about creating these new habits that feel right. You know that you're going in the right direction because you're feeling better and better as you're doing them. You're not forcing yourself into some really stressful, extreme thing that's hard to keep up with, you're not enjoying it, you're feeling worse, that's not the right way to go. You want to start with new, gentle habits that you slowly and gradually build in, that build on themselves, and then you see great progress over time, and you enjoy the process that way. Okay, our pumpkin has been simmering nicely in there. Oh yeah, that's looking great. Okay, so at this point, I'm really just going to take all of the meat off of these bones here and just add it right back in. There's still onions and celery in there from before, which I like. Of course, you can do this different ways. You can have just strained meat stock that you made. You can start by sauteing onions and celery and garlic in some fat and then add the pumpkin meat stock and build a soup from that way. But keeping in the style of one pot meals that you just throw everything all together, I'm just showing you the easier method. But just so you know, you do have options for doing it different ways too. If you wanted to use up meat stock that you already had on hand and you wanted to start by sauteing the onions and garlic and celery and stuff and just go about it that route, you absolutely can. This is just a really easy way to go when you have everything done for you in one step. Meat stock makes itself right along with everything else that you're doing. That's my favorite way to go because it fits into the life of a very busy person the best. Okay, now that we have that in there, so we have our nice cubes of the cooked pumpkin, we have our chicken meat in there as well. The last thing that we're going to do is add our cilantro. So I have the heat turned off of the pot at this point. Because I don't really want this cilantro cooked heavily or anything. I just like to set it on there and then we'll serve some up. We'll taste it, make sure the amount of salt is right. It smells really good. The amount of salt is good. It's a really good combination, kind of surprisingly good combination of the pumpkin and the cilantro together. Yeah, really good. So it's another really fun way to enjoy pumpkin in soups right now that use wonderful meat stock. If you're looking for more resources on gut wellness using nutrient-dense food, definitely check out my website, bumblebeeapothecary.com. I have lots of recipes over there for you. And also in the description box, I have links to a lot of my recipes on my website. I also have things that I've made for you, like free ebooks. I also have meal plans down there, so definitely check out all the goodies in the description box. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. Thanks so much for coming along with me today as we talked all about meat stock, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!